Celebrations have been taking place both here and in Nepal to mark the 60th anniversary of the first climb to the summit of Mount Everest, the world's highest peak. The historic ascent by Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay saw them become the first men to reach the summit, more than 29,000 feet high, on the 29th of May 1953. But as Harry Smith reports, it's not climbing the peak that marks an extreme anymore. Nowadays, jumping off is what it's all about.
The world still looks up in awe. It still remains for many the peak of man's ambition. But 60 years ago, the highest spot on Earth was conquered, and two unknown mountaineers became heroes.
Hillary and Tenzing were welcomed and congratulated by their fellow members of the expedition.
They were applauded every step of the way. Amid the celebrations, they had to admit there were times when they came close to failure.
I was leading down the icefall, and when I was crossing a crevasse, a large lump of ice gave way on which I was standing, and I set off down a crevasse. Well, Tenzing, who was following, had the rope tight in a very short time and pulled me up, so I didn't go very far.
In the shadow of Everest today, the garlands were still being hung. The bands were marching once again. And in London, two sons prepared to mark the occasion and look back on their father's places in history.
You know, people have tried to climb this mountain many times before that. I think before they climbed, almost 18 people had lost their lives. And they continued pushing, you know, these people in the 50s, you know, my father, his father, and the British team, they pushed the envelope, you know, they were going into the unknown.
I think the thing that makes it enduring is that, like all of these big steps in human history, it basically opens it up for everyone else. We know we can do it. Whether you want to do it yourself or not, you know it can be done.
Since that historic day, more than 3,500 people have successfully climbed the 29,029 feet to the summit. Many purists complain that Everest has become too commercialised. There are often long queues of climbers waiting their turn to try for the top.
Well, it's a completely different kind of ball game. When it was originally climbed in 1953, firstly, they were going into the unknown. Secondly, yes, the equipment they had in those days was very, very basic indeed. And it was a sense of exploration. And to a degree now, sadly, Everest has been kind of downgraded by the fact that these huge commercial expeditions go on it. There can be 2,000 people at base camp, there can be 150 people going up in a day.
Perhaps it is because so many are now going up that one thrill seeker decided to mark the anniversary by going down. Russian Valery Rozov has been preparing for this jump for 2 years. It lasted just 1 minute before he opened his parachute and touched down on the glacier below.
It was one of the difficult jumps for me because of high altitude.
But no matter how many have now scaled the heights of Everest, no one will ever forget the two who were first to go where no one had gone before.
And joining me now is the adventurer Tori James, who in 2007 became the youngest British woman to climb to the summit of Mount Everest. So you've been up there on top of the world. Can you imagine what it must have been like to be the first up there when nobody actually knew it was possible to do it?
It's quite inconceivable what they did in 1953. They were stepping into the unknown. And I think today we're celebrating their bravery and their courage and their sheer determination to get to the top. I had the knowledge of photos and advice from other people that had been there before me, but they really had nothing to go on back in 1953.
And since then, a lot of people are doing it, 520 this year already. Is it getting a bit overcrowded up there?
I think, yes, the numbers are increasing year on year. Advances in technology, air travel mean that it is easier to get there, and there are people offering services to take climbers to the top. In terms of it being actually easier to get up there, we're still talking about an environment where you have to cope with -40 conditions and sub-zero temperatures. The lack of oxygen up there is debilitating to the human body and can have really, really serious consequences for climbers, and that will not change.
Because you did it when you were 25. There's been a 12-year-old boy up there, an 80-year-old man. It starts to look as though it isn't quite the same challenge that Hillary and Tenzing.
I think if you asked anyone would they like to spend over 2 months on the side of Everest in sub-zero temperatures, cooking on small stoves, I think even ask somebody to go to Scotland in winter, that is a challenge in itself. I would get to the end of each day of climbing and I would wonder where and how I was going to find the energy for the next day. It really is a serious challenge up there, and you'll really only find people there who know what it's all about.
And you'll know that to cope with some of the overcrowding and to make it a little bit safer, there is talk of putting a ladder in the Hillary step at the very top, the last 40 feet of sheer rock face. What do you think these men would have made of the idea that there's a ladder going to be up at the top of Everest?
Well, Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing were the first to really pioneer the use of ladders in the icefall back in 1953. If you look at the way that they're used in the icefall, then perhaps you could argue that they could be used elsewhere on the mountain. For reasons of safety, then I can see that it may ease some of the congestion at the summit, but really I don't think adding all of these additional aids to the mountain would be the right thing to do.
You think you should still get there by your own sheer grit and determination and not be helped up there at all?
And I think we want to see the mountain intact. It's the biggest mountain in the world. The Himalayas are a spectacular mountain range, and we want to keep it in its natural state.
It was an unbelievable achievement when they made it to the top, but once somebody's done it, it's been done, and as we know, a lot more people are doing it now. Where are the real challenges now? Where are today's Hillarys and Tenzings? What are they doing?
There are still unclimbed peaks around the world. You would only have to go to eastern Antarctica, for example, to find them. And on your back doorstep, you can find challenges that will certainly satisfy the most adventurous person.
Dory James, thanks very much for that.